Hi y'all, welcome back to another video. Wow, so we have some important subjects, and they are some subjects that, despite them being important, make me sweat like there is no tomorrow. Talk about nervous sweating because vulnerability, power, what is... Anyway, we're getting out of our comfort zone today, and we're going to talk about something that I have thus far, absolutely avoided like it was the buboes, which is the bubonic plague, by the way, for those of you who might not know that. I want to talk about something that is actually, to me, pretty serious. And bear with me because it's going to be a little hard for me to talk about, honestly, because I am embarrassed by this. However, I'm sharing it because I really feel that it's important to share, first of all, with people in general out there, because I feel that a lot of people probably don't know this and honestly take it a bit too lightly, and that the consequences are actually quite a bit more intense than one might ever expect, including myself. And so let myself be the uncomfortable cautionary tale and explain some things to you. So this video is about my old friend, marijuana, weed, whatever you want to call her. Now, I want to explain how I even got involved with her just a little bit, because I don't know, if you're someone who happens to have known me before the weed days, well, then it might really be like, what? You did what now? So yes, I am also a human, and I had reached a point in my life where I was really struggling enough that finally, I guess you could say, not in a good way, more of people chipping away at me over time, hearing people say, hey, you should really try this. It would really relax you, yada, 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 the things over time that will get into your mind. And over time, it sure did. And so one day, I don't even remember how, honestly, I got into this, but my spouse and I decided to get some. And the reason, I think, for both of us was because of our health issues, which is the sad part of the story, because it wasn't like that we got into this because, oh, it would be fun. Maybe initially, right, a little bit dabbling with it. Then the thing was, it very quickly became like medicine. And I don't know how people will feel about this, because some people it's kind of polarizing. Some people feel really strongly that like weed is only medicine, and I don't know. And then on the other hand, there's like the people who just want to get high and are just like wanting marijuana rights and all of that, which, you know, on one hand, I get that. And also I've experienced this other side of it that makes me want to talk about the not so fun parts of it. So again, I got into it because, one, I have had anxiety for most of my life, as you guys do know. And two, because after years and years and years, and I am probably one of the most straight-edged, or I was back then, people who had never done anything fun in my life. I never went out, I never drank, I never, like, literally never did anything, quote unquote, that most people consider to be fun. And so I finally gave in and tried this. And after, honestly, not that long, what I hadn't realized was that it had become habitual. And again, I want to reiterate that most people don't talk about marijuana like this. They're not like, oh yeah, it's habit forming. Let me share this first thing with you. It's habit forming. And you need to be aware of and cautious of that. Does it mean that if you smoke once, you're absolutely going to be addicted? No. However, I will tell you that, like, example, my own case. So I was using it so that I literally, so that I could eat. Because if I didn't smoke weed, I had no appetite at all, like ever. And I honestly had reached a point where I was kind of concerned about actually full on developing an eating disorder because of how little I was eating, although that was paired with my health was so bad. So I was leaning on this as a crutch. And the point I want to make is that before really not very long, it was habitual, and it was not even on a level of consciousness where I was like, oh, this is a habit. I wasn't intending for it to be a habit. I was like unbothered. But here's the thing. It took me years to separate from this. Because at a point I had been using it every single day, because like I said, I reached a point where I literally couldn't eat unless I had weed. And obviously that's not good. I'm like, well, what is the alternative? Do I just not eat food? That's not an option. So I just want to be, I guess, a cautionary tale, because although it is overlooked and is considered to be one of the more innocuous medicines, as plant medicines go, it's like the lowest on the scale of harm, right? However, it's still addictive. It is. It's very addictive, honestly. And I would argue that it's one of the hardest ones, or at least this is crazy to say, it was one of the hardest things for me to ever quit, because there's always like that little pull of like, oh, but I could just really quickly but you can't. It's one of those things, I know it's a Pringles slogan or something, but like once you pop, you just can't stop. Weed is like, it's just a little bit sneaky like that. Like if one minute you're using it casually, the next minute you're using it daily and you're struggling to get off. And here's the other part I want to talk about, because if you're listening to this and you're like, well, how bad could it really have been? Actually pretty bad, because I would say that it might even have led up to my anxiety. Because what happens is if you do become dependent upon weed, let's say it's a daily habit for you at this point, then when and if you make the decision to then cut down, what can happen? And what happened to me, much to my surprise, because I didn't know it was a strong enough drug to do this, is that I experienced things like clammy palms and anxiety. Like, I don't know how else to describe my version of anxiety, except it kind of feels like someone's running their hands up your back, like that thing where they used to give you the chilies in school and like you'd get a shiver up your spine, but like so not in a fun way. And like just an eerie, you have spiders running across you or something, absolutely creepy feeling, you know? And these were feelings that I had not experienced before. And not to mention, I also dealt with nausea, which is like crazy, because if you think about it, I was using it to combat nausea. And for many, many people, like people with more serious dis-ease of the body, you know, it's recommended. And to a point, I guess, if you're using it respectfully and you're not using it like daily, I just think it's something where people ought to be aware that this is something that you could have withdrawals from. You could experience when you go to cut down, if you're already addicted to it, whatever, you may experience a racing heart a little bit. You may experience sweaty palms and anxiety a bit and nausea. It is not like, oh, you just decide to come off weed, wham, bam, it's super easy. People make it seem that way, and it's not. So this wasn't an awesome video that I was super psyched about making, but I wanted to kind of share about some of the not so awesome things about weed. Although I do also believe that, you know, for the right person using it with respect, perhaps someone can do that. That person is, I guess, not me. That it can be beneficial. And that, of course, compared to like many of the things out there, I still do think it's on the more benevolent side-ish. However, just use it with awareness. Now that you are aware of this, know that you could experience sweaty palms, you could experience a racing heart, and you could experience nausea if you're using it to help you with any of the things that might have correlated with what my experience was, or even if you're not. So just a little caution about that. Very embarrassing to admit and acknowledge. I am happy to say that I am very much off of it now, and it feels weird. That's actually a side kind of point for me to make here. The thing that I wasn't realizing in my life while I was smoking daily was, I don't even really know what to call it, but let's just call it a crispness. There is a clarity, a crispness of life that gets lost and dulled. And, you know, that's, I suppose you would say, is kind of the point. It does dull the senses. And so over time, the problem being, though, that your whole overall vision for yourself, your life, kind of goes to, not to make a joke, but kind of goes to pot. It blurs away. Like it blurs, if you could blur this line between the tapestry and my wall, you know, if that was to go all fuzzy or something, that's what weed does. And I get the appeal of that. Because life these days, guys, it's hard. And a lot of people have anxiety. And there are so many reasons, honestly, to want to dull yourself. And just know that if you're not, I so respect you for not using anything to dull anything. And I am there now, thankfully, like, woo! It's not been a long time. That's why I wanted to make the video now. It is so fresh. And the amount of times that I have backslid, I guess you could say, and gone back to it and then been like, "Gah, I hate this." Not that I hate it. It's just, it's not how I want to live. I want to remember all of the things that I should be able to remember. That's another thing. It can affect your memory. These are all things nobody talks about. So if you still at the end of the day are like tallying up these things and you're like, yeah, no, I still want to try it. Well, you know, it's your life. Just at least now you have the full information, many things of which people don't discuss. They don't talk about these physical withdrawals. They don't talk about the fact that you could kind of low-key give yourself anxiety, and the fact that if you become dependent on it for something like to eat, you're going to have a hell of a time if you ever try to then come off of it. So just some food for thought and yeah, to be aware of. So use yours truly's cautionary tale as something to take a little more seriously if you do consider using this plant medicine, which is what I now consider it to be. So have a blessed and a beautiful rest of your day or night. Stay well, stay healthy. Namaste, much love, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Too serious, ha, yeah. But yes, I am also a human.